Hey, welcome back to another installment of the Wide Right Podcast. I'm Manny Navarro, Miami Hurricanes beat writer for The Athletic. He is Carlos Ledo of the MIA All Day Podcast. It is Tuesday, August 29th, right around 4 p.m. Carlos, it's finally game week.
And it's the legendary MIL Day podcast now. And it's only legendary because I haven't recorded an episode in so long that it's sort of like lost to the legends, the worlds of podcasting and on-air personalities. So yeah, man, finally, the week is here. There is a game, something worth talking about.
Yes, and I know I have a lot of Miami fans who have messaged me saying, "Hey, when's the podcast coming back?" People are like, "You're not doing them often enough." I've tried to express here that I've got some more responsibilities for the Athletic. I'm doing a bunch of ACC recruiting, writing, all kinds of stories and stuff that I'm doing, and it's just made it difficult. I'm also doing more podcasts. I'm on the Until Saturday podcast for the Athletic, and I'm just busy, Carlos. Not because I don't want to talk Canes, because I enjoy it. You and I always enjoy our conversations on the Canes and doing these podcasts. It's just we're busy people. We got a lot
Yeah,
going on, and
listen, first of all, you're big time, and that's why you're not coming back. You're slumming it right now, speaking to me about anything, really, to be honest with you. You're a national guy now. You're all over the place. I get it. The little folks, you're forgetting about us, but it's all right. Thank you for
I,
coming back to us and throwing us a crumb. I personally have not recorded a podcast just because I'm lazy. That's just me. Yes, I've been busy, but I probably could have fit it in somewhere. Decided not to. But I mean, it doesn't really get exciting for me until now, right? Now, this is a time where you really start getting hyped up, where I start getting back in the groove now, where I start, pulling out the memorabilia that I've been hiding a little bit from the wife, start pulling it out little by little. She starts looking around the house and saying, "Where's all this stuff coming from?" I was like, "What do you mean? It was here last week. It's always been here. What are you talking about? There was no Sebastian the Ibis on top of the refrigerator. I mean, what are you talking about? That Sebastian's been here our whole life. What do you mean?" So yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm doing right now.
poor Joanna, you're scaring the hell out of her with making her think she's crazy. But hey, you got
Yeah,
to have
man, you
some
got to
fun
do what you got
before
to
the
do,
season.
man. It's football season.
It is. It is. So Canes open the season Friday night against Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks. Um, and I want to catch you up to date because the last time we did a show was about 2 weeks ago, and Tyler Van Dyke, he went through two scrimmages and missed a couple practices, I guess, because he bumped his hand on a helmet. And Mario Cristobal on Monday during his press conference said, "Look, Tyler did miss a couple practices. He's fine. He's going to start." It's the same thing I heard when I reached out. I didn't report it because as a reporter, I don't report everything I hear. Sometimes you kind of have to just, listen to the messages and reach out, find out, and if people tell you, hey, he's fine, believe it. So
Right.
anyway, it came sort of a little mini story there for a little bit, but he's going to be fine, my understanding. He should be available to play Friday. And look, what I try to tell people is he played through a grade 3 sprain in his shoulder, right? Separated shoulder, and played against Florida State. Didn't play well, but I'm pretty sure a finger is not going to hold Tyler Van Dyke out of the starting lineup opening night. Miami has a couple of other injuries, guys that had surgery in the offseason that Mario said will not be back for the beginning of the season. Trevante Citizen, the running back, three offensive linemen, including Jonathan Dennis, Zion Nelson, and Antonio Tripp, all having surgery, not rushing any of those guys back. And the reality is they really don't need any of those guys, Carlos. There are no major dire injuries. What I always am interested in finding out, of course, is who's suspended, right? Game one,
Yeah.
because that's always the interesting one. We'll get told an hour before kickoff, hey, such and such guy is being held out because they did something stupid over the summer, and then we got to go and find out who that is. But Mario's done a pretty good job keeping things close to the vest for the most part. And look, if he's legit and there's no other major injuries on this team, they should go out and beat the Red Hawks. They're a 17-point favorite going into that game, Carlos. But I will say this for the Miami fans who think it's going to be a walkthrough. Um, this team was 6-7 last year. They had their backup quarterbacks play most of the year. Brett Gabbert, who's a senior, that Gabbert name should sound familiar to football fans. He only played in 4 games last year
Yeah.
for him, and they were 4-0 when he started. So we'll get into the game. We'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to get into some preseason predictions, Carlos, player predictions. I want to ask you if you agree with me or disagree with me, and we can debate. I'll throw you what is going to be running in some of my stories this week in the Athletic. We'll go schedule by schedule, game by game. And I'm predicting ultimately a 7-5 season for the Hurricanes. The over under is
Ooh,
7.5. I'm going with 7 because, well, since 2004, Miami's record has averaged to be
7-5.
7-5. So I think
Well,
they're a better
listen, this
team.
you can tell that you've been doing more national stuff and that you're not going to be potting as much, and that you're sort of like pressing the brakes on the Miami stuff because you're throwing out a bold prediction like that that's going to piss off the fan base. So it's
Hmm.
like dropping the grenade and walking away and say, "Hey, listen, I don't have to deal with it, right? I'm out of here."
Hey, listen, I pissed off a lot of people in the last 48 hours. The Gators
Yeah.
fans can't stand me right now because I predicted that they're going to have a losing season and hold on to their top 10 recruiting class. They just didn't like the losing season part that I mentioned. So, and Florida State fans think, Miami fans are accusing me of being a Florida State fan because I think they can sign the number one class in the country this year. But
Well, hey
hey, if
man,
they have a
everybody's got
great
hate
year,
for
they
you.
could.
Everybody's got hate for you, and you've got somebody stalking you now, looking for additional predictions and information from you, calling you
Yes.
hour on the hour. So I mean, it's you're a busy guy, and there's a lot of hate to go around. And once you start becoming popular, man, once your star starts to
Yeah.
rise,
So
this is what
popular.
happens, bro. This is what
So
happens.
popular. I'm still here in the same house in West Broward. Carlos, let's talk first about Miami of Ohio because I'm sure you've probably done a little bit of home. Knowing you, the fan that you are, you probably have a little bit of surface knowledge on Miami of Ohio. How worried are you going into the opener?
Uh, Listen, Manny, I have a disease. It's called too much useless information that I carry around. And when it comes to football, that happens to be just like my sweet spot sometimes in terms of the carrying of the useless information
Yeah.
and digging into things that I really shouldn't dig into, like going down YouTube wormholes that I really have no business going down and trying to learn things. I will give you a statistic here. So, the last 10 season openers for Miami at home versus a Division One opponent. Okay, so we're not talking Bethune, we're not talking FAMU, we're not talking on the road or a neutral site game. First home game, right, to open the season against a D1 opponent, against a D1 conference. They are 10-0, and their average margin of victory is 17.3 points per game. Which, ding, ding, ding. I'm assuming that's where Vegas got the line from.
They could have, but that of course doesn't mean it's going to be an easy game either,
It does
right? I mean,
not, and I'll tell you why. Here's the problem. So, like you said, Brett Gabbert went down. They had their backup quarterback playing most of the year. They struggled offensively. That was their main issue. They averaged 20 points a game. I think it was like 113th in the country in
yep,
terms of points per game on offense. Their starting quarterback, the one that took over for Brett Gabbert, under 50% completion percentage, didn't really generate much offense like you saw, but their defense was pretty good, right? They only allowed about 23 points per game. They were 35th in the country in terms of points per game on defense. They're known for their defense, and they brought back a ton of guys on defense. All right.
yep.
I think the returning production is like somewhere 74% on the defensive side.
Yeah, nine starters are back on defense, and I know that they were plus 11 in the turnover margin last year.
Yes.
They had 22 turnovers forced, which was top 20 in the country last year. So this is a team that they have an older quarterback, and they've got a defense that's experienced and creates turnovers,
And
which
I
I
believe they
think,
lost 4 one possession games.
yes, and I think the moral of the story here is, Miami has played MAC schools before, right? Like Toledo and Central Michigan, and they weren't blowouts. They were competitive ball games. And I actually ranked Miami's schedule in one of my preseason previews here that's coming out Wednesday and Thursday in the Athletic. And I didn't mark this the easiest game. In fact, I've got three other games marked as easier games than Miami of Ohio. So this to me is the uh I don't know, ninth toughest game of the season for the Hurricanes, but still it's not, this isn't a cakewalk in my book. And again, I'm only picking Miami to go 7-5 this season in part because I think they do have a tough schedule. I think there are some really tough opponents on this year's schedule. So, um,
Yeah, normally you'll be starting off with a FAMU or a Bethune-Cookman or something like that to start the
right,
season at home. You're opening up against a legitimate MAC opponent. I mean, they were 6-6 in the regular season last year, lost the bowl game, but again, like we just talked about, they had 4 one-possession games that could have gone either way, and they lost their starting quarterback at the start of the year.
yep,
They're a totally different team with that quarterback. Their offense is questionable. I mean, let's see what they do. There's a lot of guys, a lot of turnover, a lot of change on that offense side of the ball, which may be good for them ultimately because they were so bad last year. Their defense is pretty solid. They were, I believe, 3-0 last year when they rushed for over 120 yards. So I expect them to try and run the ball against Miami, especially since Miami, for a Power Five conference, has an undersized defensive line in terms of their defensive tackles, and see
right.
what they could generate there, ball control, and keep the ball out of Miami's hands. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Canes win. If they win convincingly by 14 or more, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as they win by two touchdowns, I mean, I personally think this is going to be a tight game in the second half. I don't think it's. I
Yeah.
think it'll be a one or two score game at most. and I think Miami, they'll win, and they'll end their 5 game losing skid at home. Carlos, they've have a 5 game losing skid at home. I don't know if you
Wow,
remember
what
that.
we are so far from the 58 game winning streak at home. My God, 5 game losing streak at home. That is
Yes,
ridiculous.
Middle Tennessee State in the 4 ACC games. They were winless at home in the ACC last year. So Miami fans want to beat their chest, say, "Hey, we're being disrespected," blah 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 blah. Hey, there's a reason there's a lot of sports writers and media around the country that are skeptical because Mario, as much as he has flipped this roster, 42 new players, 7 new assistant coaches, we've seen this song and dance before. We've seen other teams flip a roster, other coaches that have been here before, and you don't always get the results that you want right away. I think they will be better, but I don't think these are world beaters right away at the start of the season. All right. That's Miami of Ohio. We won't get much more into that. We've kind of touched on all the key points for them. I do want to get into sort of a season overview. Miami didn't put out a depth chart, Carlos. I will have a depth
Mhm.
chart with my story. More importantly, I made some predictions regarding each of the positions. I brought up some stats in my story. I'm going to read some commentary to you, and I want you to tell me myth or fact.
All right, let's
Okay.
see here.
Let's see here. This is my first one, and we'll start obviously with the quarterback. Okay. That's kind of the most important thing here. Miami struggled with trust and confidence in the passing game last year, finishing 85th out of 131 teams in quarterback passer rating. Of course, they didn't have Tyler Van Dyke for every single game. Mario Cristobal said he feels as though that's one of the strongest parts of the team entering the 2023 season. He thinks the passing game is one of the strengths. Does that mean we should expect a healthy Tyler Van Dyke to put up the kind of numbers he did over the final 6 games of the 21 season? 366 yards a game, 20 touchdowns, and 3 picks when he finished 11th in the country in passer rating. I'm not buying that, Carlos. Miami's still going to run the football a lot. I expect to see Van Dyke come close to matching Justin Herbert's numbers at Oregon his senior year. I'm going to give you his numbers:
Let me go.
3,400,
3,030, right?
huh?
3,030 touchdowns.
3,032 touchdowns, 6 picks. Um, Van Dyke, if he plays all 12 games, I'm calling for him to complete 64% of his passes for 3,200 yards, 29 touchdowns, 8 picks, which I think will make him a top 40 quarterback in terms of QBR. Myth or fact, is that what we should expect out of Tyler Van Dyke?
Um, well, I told you a couple shows ago, I think he'd be somewhere around 3,230 touchdowns,
Okay.
somewhere around 6, 7 picks. So I'm gonna go myth. I'm gonna go with my prediction: 3,230,
Okay.
around six picks.
All right. So a couple more, one more touchdown and 2 fewer picks for Tyler, which would I think if you adjust the QBR from that, he probably gets into the top 30. I think he's going to be a top 40 passer. He'd be one of the leaders in the ACC in touchdown passes because they are going to throw the football. But I also think this Miami offense is going to improve significantly because they're able to run the ball, and I think they're not going to give up on the running game. It's going to be a big part of what they do. I don't expect Tyler to average more than 40 passes a game. And so he's going to sort of be limited where some games he'll put up big numbers and some games he won't.
Well, I think it plays into his favor, like I said before, on another show, if the running game is good, because what he does best is push that ball down the field. So
Right.
he'll be more efficient and have more yards per completion. Although he's getting less attempts, his yardage might be similar just because he's hitting more of those deep shots and deep home run balls and being more efficient with it and completing passes at a higher rate because the defense is having to respect that running game. So he's getting more one-on-one coverage on the back end, finding guys more open, and also going back to a system that he feels more comfortable in, which is a system that has less reads, less progressions. He doesn't have to read the field. It's a 1-2 shoot or tuck it and go or throw the ball away. And I think within this system, you're probably going to see more involvement with the slot receivers. You're going to see more involvement with the tight end than you did last year. You're going to see some more use of the running backs, I think, in the passing game, which I think was a little bit of a failing last year. They didn't use the backs enough in the passing game.
Shannon Dawson said he has a good idea who his dudes are at receiver. Miami didn't really have one last year, but I'm betting that Colby Young becomes that guy around the end zone for TVD. I say he'll lead the team with 11 touchdown catches, the most by a Hurricane since Leonard Hankerson's 13 in 2010. I'm calling for Colby to have 55 receptions, 700 yards. Does that sound like an accurate number to you?
Um, I think Kobe's going to have more of a KJ Osborne type year.
Okay.
I think it's KJ had somewhere like 5, 607 touchdowns, something like that.
Hmm.
I think that's more around what he'll have. I agree in terms of the yardage touchdowns. I think he'll have less. I think you'll probably see maybe Xavier Restrepo have more touchdowns because just that's TVD's comfort zone. That's who he goes to. That's his guy. That's who he depends on. And I think teams are going to rotate coverage. Colby Young, when it's going to leave the slot receivers working one-on-one more than the outside guys.
All right. Xavier Restrepo, I said he'll lead the team with 65 catches, 840 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But the 65 catches and 840 yards will lead the team.
I agree with that. I believe he will be the leading receiver, and I think he'll probably have 7, 8 touchdowns. I think he's gonna have like a Braxton Berrios type year. Yes, I know. That's a tired comparison at this point. Yes. Hispanic last name, small white guy. I get it. It's a bad comparison. All right. Apples to apples is what I'm trying to throw out there. And it's not for that reason. I'm just saying they play very similar roles. He's a little bit shiftier in the slot that Braxton was. Braxton was probably a little bit more straight line fast, but I think he's going to fill that role well. And just because he's TVD's comfort, he's that comfort blanket, that guy he reaches out to whenever he's in trouble. If he's healthy the whole season, I think Restrepo leads the team in receptions and in yards.
My breakthrough player, though, is Nathaniel Ray Joseph, the freshman from Miami Edison. I think he's going to earn freshman All American honors. He'll be the number 3 receiver on the team. Got him for 45 catches, 733 yards. It's a pretty big average, Carlos, and 5 touchdowns.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. I think that's going to be a myth. I
Okay.
think he'll get opportunities. I don't think his numbers will be quite that high because not only is he competing for snaps with Restrepo, he's also competing with Rashard Smith. I think he's going to get on the field and get the ball ton, but he's also going to compete with who I'm going to select as my sleeper breakout offensive player of the year, Jaleel Skinner.
All right. You brought me to the tight ends. Will Mallory led the Hurricanes last season with 42 catches, 538 yards. He only scored 3 touchdowns. Elijah Arroyo, he's coming off season-ending knee injury. He's kind of been limited in practices and camps. They've kind of treated him with kid gloves. So I think he's going to get off to a slow start, much the same way Will Mallory did a couple seasons ago. If you remember in 21,
Mm-hmm.
Mallory ended up with 30 catches, 347 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's the numbers I think Arroyo puts up this year at tight end to be the top tight end on the team, but not necessarily a great individual season.
I agree, but I think those numbers are going to go to Skinner instead of Arroyo. I think Arroyo is going to take a while to get back. If they do use him in combination with Skinner, I think he's going to be more of the inline guy to allow Skinner to split out wide or use him in the H role to motion and move. I think just Jaleel Skinner is an athletic freak. He's put on a little bit more weight, and he's just a matchup problem for defenses that the Hurricanes need to take advantage of this season.
All right. Miami's offensive line, I don't expect them to go very deep. Carlos, in fact, I think it's going to be a 5-man rotation barring injury. I think the 5 guys from left to right, Jalen Rivers is going to be your left tackle. I think your left guard, it's going to be Javion Cohen. You're going to have Matt Lee at center, Inez Cooper at right guard, and your right tackle is going to be Francis Marinoa. As long as those guys are healthy, I think the only time we'll see the backups get into the game is if Miami's winning by a lot, like the Bethune-Cookman game, in which case I think Samson Okunlola and Matthew McCoy are the first 2 guys off the bench.
I agree. I agree with that. So I don't know what's the other option from Myth. Is it fact? Myth,
Yes.
myth busted. Let's do that. Myth busted. So yeah,
Okay.
I think it's true. I think I don't. And for me, I've always preferred having a steady offensive line group out there, just because the amount of communication and the amount of trust that it takes to play offensive line and play it well, it's like a well-oiled machine. If you've got different guys rotating in and out, you don't get that consistency and that cohesiveness you need to really get going up front. And if you've got 5 guys you're confident in, you let those 5 guys ride and you don't sub them out unless there's an injury or there's a need to, or you're up by a lot of touchdowns, right? Or a lot of points. So I'd like to see that starting 5 go throughout the season. Hopefully they stay healthy. It's a shame that Zion Nelson hasn't come back from his injury. It would have been nice to see if he could have competed and gotten a job there at the left tackle and maybe made this offensive line even that much better. But got to start the freshman at right tackle and move Jalen Rivers out to left tackle. I'm pretty hopeful for this offensive line. Got to see what Inez Cooper does this year. He was okay last year. He wasn't a world beater. He's a big dude, but I think his PFF numbers were somewhere in the low 60s. And I'm not sure Jalen Rivers has the feet to play left tackle, but we'll see. Hopefully he proves us wrong.
All right. The running game I think is going to be improved. Miami finished 95th in yards per carry last season, 98th in 2021. And they haven't had a running back eclipse 693 rushing yards in a season since 2018 when Travis Homer finished with 985 yards and averaged 6 yards a carry. Shannon Dawson said Monday it'll be a running back by committee to start the season, which means we probably won't see the program's first 1,000-yard back since Mark Walton in 2016. What I am counting on is Miami improving in this way. I say they're going to average better than 4 yards a carry and finish in the top half of the ACC in rushing with at least 2,000 yards as a team. I'm betting on big-bodied freshman Mark Fletcher to lead the team in rushing attempts, giving him 100 yards, 603, and touchdowns. Six. That's a 6.03 average. I think because it'll be a committee, you'll see A.J. Allen and a lot of Henry Parrish right on his tail. I think between the three of those guys, you'll probably get 1,700 of those 2,000 yards rushing.
I agree. I think you'll probably see those guys all between 400 and 650 yards. Like you said, running back by committee. I think ultimately, I think you may be right that Mark Fletcher gets the most yardage. If it's not Mark Fletcher, man, AJ Allen looked good in the spring game. He's, I mean, I'm sorry, in this last scrimmage, from what I saw, the highlights and what I've read, he's a big dude. He's got some power behind him. He still has some speed and some shiftiness. I would say if it's not Fletcher, it's him that leads the team in rushing.
Obviously, stopping the run is going to be the key to everything in Lance Guidry's defense. And I think without the kind of size Daryl Jackson provided in the middle last season, there's going to be a chance Miami's going to slip from being average against the run, which they gave up 4 yards a carry, 63rd nationally, to finishing further down the list, especially when they face really good rushing teams. Those guys are going to find a way to beat the Hurricanes. We've seen it in the past, Carlos. North Carolina's done it. Florida State's done it. Miami ranked 8th in the ACC in rushing yards allowed per game. Guidry said Brandon Dean is going to likely lead the team in snaps at defensive tackle. He played 492 last season at Purdue. Leonard Taylor, 10-game starter, played 329 snaps. It's only 32 a game. I say if those guys don't play more than 500 snaps each, I guarantee you Miami is going to be one of the worst rushing defenses in the ACC.
I agree. I think because, like we've talked about many times over the summer, this defensive line, especially at the defensive tackle spot specifically, is undersized. They're going to need to use movement and athleticism to disrupt offensive lines. And I think, Dean's going to be their only plug, their only nose tackle, one technique type guy that can really take on double teams and be that solid force inside. And they have other guys that are like Leonard Taylor in terms of not really with that talent, but that three technique that's really more of a pass rusher that gets upfield, as opposed to a run stuffer. So they're going to try and use that movement. And I think they have guys that are bigger on the outside, like a Mesidor, and other guys that are bigger and stockier that they could bring down into a defensive tackle spot on third down situations or even second down and long situations to create havoc in the passing game or try and create movement up front against the run, where you're basically maybe playing 4 defensive ends up front, and just that slanting and moving confuses the offensive line and you'll be able to get the backfield and get penetration that way. I think what you're going to see is a defense, I don't think worse against the run than last year, but I think you're going to see a defense that is better but will give up big plays in the run game because they have to stunt and move and shoot gaps that if they miss and if they're not on the right spot, if somebody doesn't get their assignment, if the linebacker's out of place or a step behind, there's going to be a long run.
Yeah, I agree. Francisco Mauigoa was brought in from Washington State to replace Corey Flagg as Miami's starting middle linebacker. I think Mauigoa is going to lead all Miami linebackers in snaps. I got him with 550 and tackles 80 plus.
Over Basaint, huh?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll go with you. And I think he maybe has 10 more tackles at Basaint this season.
All right. On the flip side of the defensive tackle problem, I think the Hurricanes should top 40 sacks for the first time since 2019 with the collection of talent they have on the edge and the heavy pressure schemes Guidry's going to bring. I got Akeem Mesidor. Well, first of all, Akeem Mesidor last year led the team with 7 sacks. He was tied for the team lead with 10.5 tackles for loss. You probably put up similar numbers, but the two guys that I'm saying are really going to explode this year are Nigel Lee Kelly and Ruben Bain, the true freshman. I've got them down for 8 sacks each.
Wow.
Too much?
Wow, that's a lot of sacks. I don't think they both get to 8 sacks. I think maybe, 6 and 7. Just beneath that 8 sack mark, and I think Mesidor probably gets like 10. And Jafari Harvey probably picks up another 5, 6 himself.
Well, they're going to have over 40, so they got to find a way to get there. I think the way I suspect the majority of this pressure is going to work is when the linebackers come, you're going to see quarterbacks and step into the pocket, and that's where you're going to see a guy like Ruben Bain when he's playing on the inside. He just has a natural knack for knowing which way the quarterback is going. He's one of the best I've ever seen at it. Um, and he doesn't have the length of a Gregory Rousseau, but he just knows how to sniff out the quarterback. I think that's why he'll get 8. And I think Nigel Kelly is the best edge rusher they've got on the team. And I think he's just going to explode and have a massive sophomore season. So I got both of them for 8 sacks. But let's move on to the pass defense. It was bad last year, Carlos. But I think an improved pass rush will probably help them improve on a 102nd place finish in opponent passer rating. Miami gave up 60.9% completion percentage, an average of 233 yards, 8.3 yards per pass average that ranked last in the ACC and 121st overall. A lot of big pass plays. I don't know that they're all going to vanish when you're playing one-on-one island coverage, but there should be fewer of them. I say after giving up 15 pass plays of 40 yards or more last year, Miami trims it to 10.
I agree with that. That's the number I'm thinking. 10. I'll stay with you on that one.
All right. How much will James Williams move into the box and play outside linebacker? Guidry said it will depend on matchups. I think it'll be fewer than 150 snaps because Miami ultimately needs somebody else at safety to emerge, take his reps, and I'm not sure that guy exists on the roster right now.
I agree with that as well. And I think you're going to see him depending on what the alignments are by the offense. I think if you're seeing more, 10 personnel, what you call 4 receivers, 1 running back, no tight ends, you're probably going to see James Williams playing more of a traditional safety role. If you're seeing more 11 or 12 personnel, meaning 1 back, 2 tight ends, 1 tight end, I think you'll see him more in the box to try and support that. At the end of the day, I think here, you know what? Here's another one we missed here, Manny. So apparently, some people are having a little competition. Since we're talking about predictions this season, someone tried to create a drinking game based on the show. And whenever somebody's drinking, not this, let me give a legal waiver here, legal warning. I in no way encourage you to drink while you listen to the show. I am not encouraging you to drink at any point in your life. If you do choose to do so, that is your choice. If you choose to drink in a situation that is either against the law or morally wrong, that is your choice. We are not encouraging you to do that. Now, that being said, at the end of the day, Manny, when the
Yes.
day is long, the day ends, and it's at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, you know what happens at the end of the day? At the end of the day. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you are now trashed. Anyway. So I think James Williams has a lot to prove this season. That to me is the guy on defense that I think, aside from Leonard Taylor, needs to have a breakout year. I think those are the 2 guys that we need to spotlight this year because there's been so much talent and so much promise, and we've seen flashes of it, but none of it's really bubbled up to the top and become dominant yet. And those 2 guys have the physical tools and ability to be dominant players. And I think for this defense to be successful and to be markedly better than last year, those 2 guys need to take steps forward and take steps to be leaders on that defense in terms of what they do. So Leonard Taylor needs to be the guy that disrupts that offensive line, creates havoc in backfields. James Williams cannot be beaten over the top. He needs to be a secure tackler. He needs to be sound in his coverages. And more than anything, he's got to stay on the field and be healthy. And if he can do that, I think they'll be much improved on the back end.
All great points. All right, this is the last one. Will All-American safety Cameron Kitchens match the ACC leading 6 interceptions he had a year ago? I'm going to say yes, Carlos. Shockingly, Kitchen was only targeted 21 times in pass coverage last season, which was tied for 25th in the ACC among safeties. That's less than twice a game. And yet he had a knack for coming up with the football. I just think this guy's gifted. People have always said, well, you're not going to have as many picks, right? Because teams aren't going to throw your way. When you're a safety, you kind of have free reign to go over the top and make plays. And he just has a really good eye for the football. And I think he's going to match his 6 picks from a year ago.
I agree. I think he'll match his 6 picks, and I think it's going to be more because not only is his ability to track balls down and be sound in coverage and be over the top, he's also going to get more opportunities because of the pressure, like we're talking about. Lance Guidry is going to bring more pressure. Quarterbacks going to have to get rid of that ball a lot faster. They're not going to be able to read the defense as long as they like and make mistakes and make decisions they shouldn't be making, and hopefully Cam comes up with more picks.
All right, we're gonna come back at the end of the year, at the end of the regular season, and review all of our predictions to see who got more of them right, who got more of them wrong. So we will definitely be back with an episode on this for
Nobody
sure.
wrote it down, so I could lie and say all of mine were correct.
No, I've got it all written down. I already checked it off here on my sheet, Carlos. All right, so I ranked the schedule hardest, actually easiest to hardest, and I gave a prediction for each game. I've already given it away. I said 7-5 for Miami. So you can tell me whether you agree or disagree. Easiest game, clearly Bethune Cookman. The only difficult part of that game, Carlos, is they're going to be coming off 5 days rest after facing Texas A&M. It isn't ideal to play any game on 5 days rest, but especially if you're dealing with injuries, if you're banged up. But thankfully, it's Bethune Cookman, who they beat last year 70-13, and should be able to cruise with backups in the game. I think Miami wins 59-7, so 52-point spread. Any disagreements with me there?
I think they'll be in the 60s. The last 3 or 4 times I played Bethune, they've been like almost two of those have been in the 70s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go 63-10.
Okay. The 11th hardest game, okay, or the second easiest, whichever way you want to look at it. I got that as Temple, September 23rd. The Hurricanes lost their last game against a team from the American Athletic Conference when Cincinnati beat them in 2015. The Owls, Miami's former Big East rival, are led by sophomore EJ Warner, the son of two-time NFL MVP Kurt Warner. The Owls went 3-9 last season. They haven't won more than 3 games since 2019. This is the kind of road game I think Miami can go and win convincingly. I've got them winning 44-20.
I've got Miami as well in the Manny Diaz Bowl. Uh, Temple breathing a sigh of relief. Miami opening the door and kicking him straight out for Mario. Yeah, I think it's going to be a 3 touchdown win for the Hurricanes there. Didn't one of the who transferred to Temple from Miami? Didn't somebody transfer to Temple, or was that UMass?
UMass. Miami
UMass,
had a
that's right.
player who did transfer to UMass. I think it was Jalen Harrell, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and
Okay.
look at my sheet. But yes, that's yeah, not Temple. All right, the third easiest game on the schedule, Virginia. The Cavaliers, that's going to be a game October 28th. Last year, Miami won in quadruple overtime in Charlottesville. You remember that play, Jake Garcia, the dive into the end zone.
Yeah, he bunted over a run, missed throw at third, allowed the run to score in the 15th inning, and the Hurricanes won 2-1.
It was the second ugliest memory seared into my mind from last year's 5-7 campaign, Carlos. Tony Elliott is starting a Monmouth transfer at quarterback, and he plays North Carolina the week before the week before coming to Miami. UM will be coming off the Clemson game. I don't expect Miami to win the Clemson game. I expect them to take out some of their frustrations against the Cavaliers, who won't be very good. In fact, this could be a Virginia team that doesn't win a game at all this year, Carlos. That's how bad I think they're going to be. I got Miami winning 38-14.
I agree. I think it'll be convincing, but I don't think it'll be a straight blowout. You know how it is. Virginia, for whatever reason, always hangs around. Doesn't get blown out by the Hurricanes. And they lost Brennan Armstrong. They lost a ton of guys, and it's just they're not going to be a very good football team. They weren't very good last year. They're probably going to be worse this year.
The fourth easiest game of the season, Miami of Ohio, the opener. Red Hawks 6-7. We've already talked about them. They've played in a bowl game 3 of the last 4 years, 4-0 with Brett Gabbert at quarterback and healthy. 9 starters back on defense. I'm expecting it to be a game for 3 quarters Friday night, Carlos, before Miami puts an end to its 5-game losing skid. I got Miami winning 37-22.
I'm gonna go with the over Vegas's point spread. I'm gonna go 38-17. How's that?
All right. All right. Not bad. The fifth easiest game, and one that Miami will win as well. I got Georgia Tech at home October 7th. Miami will be coming off a bye. Texas A&M transfer Haynes King, the quarterback for Georgia Tech, didn't play against Miami last year when he was at A&M. Miami will have a week to prepare for him. If he's still the starter by then, that'll be the 6th game of the season for Brent Pry. Miami's won the last 2 meetings in tight games. Everybody thinks, oh, they blew out Georgia Tech last year. No, they didn't. Ja'Cory Brown's TD pass to Colby Young made it 21-7 with 7:52 to play in the fourth quarter. Then you had an interception return for a touchdown by Cam Kitchens, and then it, kind of turned into a blowout, 35-14. But it was close until the fourth quarter. I expect something similar here. I think Miami wins 34-20.
I agree. I think Jeff Sims is a better quarterback than Haynes King. A big loss in the transfer portal for Georgia Tech. Haynes King to me is not a very accurate quarterback. Supremely athletic, not as athletic as Jeff Sims. Um, he's got a big arm, but just doesn't put it on target. Hopefully, the Hurricanes can contain him in the pocket. If they do and they force him to be a passer, he's not going to have a good day.
Sixth easiest game of the season at Boston College to end it. November 24th. Miami's lost 3 of its last 4 meetings with the Eagles, who are coming off a 3-9 season, an abysmal time protecting their quarterback. Gave up 46 sacks last year, Carlos. That was third worst in the country. This game is going to be the day after Thanksgiving. It can be tough to get up for a game at that point, especially if you don't have something to play for. BC could. They could be playing for Coach Jeff Hafley's job. I think Miami wins that game. They get to 7 wins with that victory. I got them winning a tight game, though, 30-24 in Boston.
See, this is where having a Cuban head coach comes in handy, right? Because there's that tryptophan factor of the post hanging Thanksgiving hangover. That
Yes.
problem, you know how you resolve that, Manny? Cuban
How?
coffee, baby. Cuban coffee. Mario's gonna have colas in the locker room, and they're gonna roll Boston College 34-13.
All right. Well, listen, I'm glad you feel confident in that, and hopefully I'm not sitting there worrying in the fourth quarter about that game. All right. The sixth toughest game of the year, Carlos. The sixth toughest game of the year for the University of Miami. Louisville, November 18th at home. New coach Jeff Braun brought in 25 transfers, including former Cal quarterback Jack Plummer, to restock a team that went 8-5 last season, is viewed as a dark horse to win the conference. Jamari Thrash, remember this name, Jamari Thrash, nightmare to cover for Miami. Played at Georgia State, put up huge numbers. Smells like a shootout to me, Carlos. The way Miami's going to win the game, though, is because Louisville has to replace 32 of the team's 50 sacks lost to graduation last year. I got the Canes winning a shootout, 45-36.
Um, wow, them having to score 45 points is a lot. But I agree. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I think Brahms' offense is going to be very good this year. He's a very good offensive coordinator. He's a very good offensive mind. Although he has an OC, he's going to be the guy calling the shots on offense. And his offenses are notoriously difficult to defend, and they put up a lot of points. And he's got a good quarterback in Plummer, so we'll see what happens. But I agree. I think it's going to be somewhere along those lines. I think it'll be a one possession game at the end of the game.
All right. NC State, the fifth toughest game of the season. Why? Because it's on the road the week before Florida State, November 4th. And if you remember, Carlos, the last 2 meetings with the Wolfpack in 2020 and 2021, won by Miami by 3 points and 1 point. Dave Doran has won at least 8 games in 5 of his last 6 seasons. Brendan Armstrong has come over. He's with Robert and I. They're going to rekindle the Virginia magic together. I think this is a coin flip game, one that Miami could win and could potentially get them to 8 wins. I'm thinking NC State, though, at home is going to get a little revenge. I got them winning 33-30.
Yeah, NC State's always got a good defense as well. They bring a few guys back, and I think offensively, Brendan Armstrong's going to be the difference on that team. I think the one thing they lacked at quarterback was athleticism. Although their quarterback, Devin Leary, was a good quarterback, he could sling the ball over the field. He was a bit of a statue back there and wasn't really a threat in the run game, albeit against the Hurricanes, he scored a rushing touchdown a year ago, or 2 years ago, whenever it was. Incredible. Anyway, I think Brendan Armstrong's going to be tough to deal with. He has been for Miami ever since he's been there when he's been healthy. So, yeah, I think North Carolina State probably has the edge in this one.
All right, fourth toughest game on the Miami schedule at North Carolina, October 14th. Heisman candidate Drake May struggled some against Miami last season, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. That's struggling for Drake May. New offensive coordinator coming off a 9-5 season, but Mac Brown is 4-0 against Miami. He's got some talented running backs. I think that's going to be the difference in the game. I think that's going to be the Achilles heel for Miami. I got Tar Heels 34-31.
I would agree, but here's the thing. For me, the thing that's been the most difficult to deal with North Carolina the last few years with Mac Brown has been their offense. They played at a very fast pace. They had some really great stuff. They were tough to defend. Phil Longo did a great job with their offense, but he's not there anymore. And it's going to be a change for Drake May. It's going to be an adjustment period. He's going to be right around the middle of the season when he plays Miami, still getting his feet wet, still getting comfortable with the offense. I think by that time he was probably going to be rolling a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be the problem that it was to defend under Phil Longo. I'm taking the Hurricanes in an upset.
All right. That's where you got them with 8 wins, I guess. Texas A&M, third toughest opponent on Miami's schedule, September 9th, game 2 of the season. Uh, this is where we get on the list, and they start to look, I think, a little overmatched at certain positions. Laugh at Jimbo Fisher for 5-7 last year and all that. The Aggies are still an uber talented team on defense. Got a former 5-star quarterback in Connor Wegman. I think this is a game Miami loses at home to a better team. 34-20 Aggies.
I think it ends up being 27-24 Aggies.
All right, little tighter. I got 2 touchdowns. You got 1 score. All right. Second toughest game, Clemson Tigers, October 21st. How do you get recruits fired up about the direction of the program, Carlos? Well, you don't lose to Clemson 58-0 like the last time when they came to town. Coming off a bye, Kate Klubnik and new offensive coordinator Garrett Riley, they should have some of their offensive kinks worked out. It's going to be game 6 or 7, I think, for them. I got Clemson winning 41-24 over Miami.
And I think that game they're going to be giving away orange ties with RIP Al on it to celebrate the day that Al Golden's coaching career at the University of Miami officially died.
Yes.
I think Clemson wins by 3 to 4 scores. I don't think we're quite there yet to be able to compete on that level.
Yep.
Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I give them a heck of a game, but I don't see Miami competing in this one.
And the toughest game of the year for the Hurricanes, Carlos.
Don't do it. Don't you dare do it. Oh, I thought you were going to do a tomahawk chop or something.
No, I can't. I can't do that. That'll really give away my secret FSU fandom. Uh, Florida State, November 11th on the road in Tallahassee. Last year it was 45-3 here in South Florida. I think Miami just has to try and keep this thing respectable so it doesn't hurt them in recruiting. Zaquan Patterson, who just committed to Miami, and 5-star receiver JoJo Trader, 2 of their top commitments, are players Florida State would love to flip. I think Miami goes into Tallahassee. I think they play them tough for 3 quarters. I think FSU pulls away late, 38-23.
Ooh, yeah, I think FSU is going to be very good this year, but I think you know how this rivalry goes. I think when a team gets their ass kicked by the other one, they come back the following year, they have a mission, they have a chip on their shoulder. It's Florida State, it's Miami. I think Miami's going to be somewhere in the 20s in terms of ranking at that point. They're going to want to show something against Florida State. I think it'll be a closer game than the experts believe. Closer than the experts believe. Not so fast, my friend. So I'm going to go 34 28 Florida State.
All right. So that's our predictions. You got them going 8-4. I've got them going 7-5. You're taking the over. I got Miami averaging 34.5 points per game, an 11-point jump from a year ago. That's up. They were giving up 26 points a game last year, around the same exact number this year. So to me, in my mind, that equates to 2 or 3 more wins for Miami. Just having a pulse on offense, which they didn't have a
Yeah.
year ago. If they had a pulse on offense last year, they go 7-5. I think they didn't have it. They have the right scheme now. They have better players, more depth. I think that is going to equate to as much as 11 more points a game, and I think that's why they ultimately finish 7-5 or 8-4 if they happen to pull off one of those upsets on the road at North Carolina.
I think you're right. I think about 34 points a game on offense, but I think they're going to be somewhere around 20 to 21 on defense. I think Lance Guidry is a very good defensive coordinator. His system matches the talent a little bit more than what was run last year. He's got more talent on the defensive side of the ball this year, I think. Although, like we said, they're undersized at defensive tackle. There's been more depth added to the defensive backfield, specifically a corner. Now, are they elite talents? No, but it's better talent than they had last year and more of it. I think they're much improved at linebacker because Wesley Vasame's going to be starting the whole season pretty much. And I think Marigold is going to be a much improved middle linebacker over Corey Flagg. You're not going to see, a Wayman Steed out there. You're not going to see other guys being rotated in and out that really shouldn't be on the field and playing snaps for the Hurricanes who really have no business being out there. So I think they're going to be much improved on defense in terms of points per game. Maybe they give up about the same in terms of yardage, but I think points per game, they're going to be a little bit better.
Will be an interesting thing to watch. I just want them to have a winning season, Carlos. I want them to build a little bit more momentum in recruiting, hold on to a lot of the key guys that they have. And then we start to see what Mario can really do once these guys have some stability. I think last year was a rough year because they didn't have enough stability. They changed the coaching staff. I think that's part of the reason why they're going to go 7-5. I think it's just hard to take a big step forward when you've got so many new players, so many new coaches. You kind of hit the reset button. I think 7-5 is probably what they should have been last year. I think this year with a little bit of stability, they'll be 7-5, getting better going into Mario's third year. And I think that's a step forward.
Yeah,
All right, you want to get to the mailbag?
sure, let's do it.
All right. First of all, they're wondering. This is everything 305. One of our diehard listeners who says, "I wonder if Raul will make a guest appearance." Have you spoken to Raul lately?
I have not, but then again, you know what? It's week one. Raul's bound to be coming around at some point. He doesn't stay hidden too long once the ball starts getting snapped.
All right. Hopefully, we hear from him soon. This is from Ryan Falcon 123. What are some of the things you guys are going to need to see in game one to determine if the season is going to start off on the right foot? Is there some let's come up with two or three between the two of us here, things that you want to see game one that says, okay, this is right.
Okay, not give up a ton of big plays on defense, be able to run the ball and protect TVD,
Okay.
and I think reduce have minimal penalties. I think that shows discipline.
I agree. I think those are the three things I want to see in game one. The last thing I would add, let's see a receiver make some big plays. I think that's going to be a concern for me until I see it, right? Like I think Colby Young can do it. I think, Jacoby George has some of that in him. I think Restrepo does, but I want to see them do it. I want to see him take a ball in the flat or in the middle of the field and take it 70 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah,
Just make a big play. Show that you have some explosiveness in your offense. It lacked so much last year that I want to see a little bit of a refresher. And I know we said Miami of Ohio is pretty good defense, but let's see what they got.
and I think
This
over
one,
the long course of the season, of the whole of the season, I want to see them be positive in the turnover battle, and turnover ratio because turnovers killed them last year.
yeah, yeah, it's a good point. This is from J.K. Slay on Twitter. He says, "What's up with this playlist survey from Canes football?" Now, I'm not gonna read all these songs all off to you because there's a long list. But apparently they sent this out to say, choose the songs you hear on game day, check the box next to any and every song you'd like to hear this season, and help us create the best environment in Hard Rock Stadium.
Okay.
I want you off the top of your head to come up with some songs that you think need to be played in the stadium, and I'll let you know whether or not it's even on the list.
All right. First of all, the U by Luke needs to be played at the stadium. That's number one.
The U by Luke. I
Yeah.
don't see the U on here anywhere.
All right. It's all about the U. Sorry. The U by Trick Daddy needs to be played as well. I think Don't Mess with the South by Trick Daddy. I think I need to hit you with some of those Trick Daddy songs. 305 Take It to the House needs to be part of that list. I think what else do we need to get on there? Me
Here I
personally,
am, rock you like a hurricane, right?
Rock You Like a Hurricane because it's classic. Yes, I think that should be on there.
I don't see
Uh,
these songs on here, by the way. I don't see Rock You Like a unless I have the wrong titles for some of these songs.
do
I
you
don't.
want do you want me to read you my tailgate playlist?
Go
What I
ahead.
what I use during the day, like while I'm
Let,
grilling and I'm setting up at the house.
let's do it. Let's
All
hear
right.
it.
So I start off with I have to have the Hurricane fight song on the tailgate list because as soon as they score a touchdown, I'm playing it like I'm at the stadium. I want to hear the band, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to circle my backyard with a flag, running around with my daughter, going crazy, and then immediately play "You Already Know" by Trick Daddy, and "It's All About the You" by Uncle Luke. So that's why I have those songs on there. Now, if you want to go a little classic, you can go "We Ballin' Boys." That's "We Ballin' Boy." That's one of the songs they played back in the day during the 2001 season. Um, Can't F with the South by Trick Daddy. I mentioned that. Take It to the House. Born and Raised in the County of Dade. Okay. Hustlin' by Rick Ross. Can't Hold Me Back by Rick Ross. Who Dat by JT Money. Okay. Move Something by Two Live Crew just because I like a little booty shake in my tailgate.
Yeah.
You gotta have a little booty shake in your tailgate, man. Esa Morena by DJ Laz. Mami Enero. Again with the booty shake. But then we get a little more serious again. Cross That Line by Rick Ross. Okay. Those are just some of the songs I have. Now, I also play a little Wu-Tang, a little
That's the
different
official
things
playlist.
to get me hyped up as I'm getting closer to game time. But it all depends.
I'm looking. I don't even see Phil Collins on here on this list that was sent out.
Yeah, that's tragic. Now, what do they have on there?
Africa by Toto.
No, no, no,
Um,
no, no. Listen, the only Toto you're gonna have there is in the stands.
Crank That Soldier Boy.
I get that. Yeah, the you. All right.
Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Listen, that song should only be used in bars to celebrate victories.
TikTok by Kesha.
No, no. This is
Timber by Pitbull, Time
no.
of
This
Our Lives.
that is a wrong Pitbull song to be playing. No.
I mean, they got Titi Me Preguntó. I wouldn't mind hearing
That
that.
I get that. That I get that. You want to get that crowd going. You want to get hyped. A little Bad Bunny. Can't go
Yeah.
wrong with it.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to listen to the song. I'm gonna be having my ears open during the game to hear what they're actually playing.
But
Um,
that survey sounds bogus at this point. If there is nothing by anybody from Miami, other than Timber, or some other bad song by
yeah.
Pitbull, other than some of his good stuff, like his early days, I don't know.
All right. This is from Alex Perry, A Perry 1927. Last year I thought the offensive line play was generally terrible. What are the expectations for the offensive line unit this year?
To be
I think it's
unterrible.
unterrible. I think they should be one of the best five in the ACC.
I agree. I think they should be above average. I don't think they're going to be elite. I think they'll be above average.
And this is from Andrew V underscore 17. Have your expectations of this team changed since the beginning of fall camp till now? Are there any position groups better or worse than you thought?
I mean, I've always thought about 8-4. I think if they get lucky, they can get sneaking to 9-3. But I've held that for a long time. I think ever since they finished with the transfer portal additions, I felt that's where they would be, and I haven't changed my mind.
Yeah, I don't think I've changed either, and I don't know that anything in practice has made me more confident or less confident in any position. I think uh, the fact that to me it's defensive tackle, receiver, cornerback are the three areas where I look at and I say they're still not great at those spots. And when you have that many positions that you're kind of concerned about going into the year, I can't get past 8-4. Like I won't for those reasons.
I think they could slip to 7-5, 6-6 if they have an injury at the safety spot.
And yeah, I agree. The depth is not great there either, but they do have two very good frontline players. So um that's it. That's it for the mailbag. That's it for the Wide Right episode. We wrapped it up in about an hour. I hope you enjoyed it. Please send all your hate mail to Kelvin Harris. I'll give you his email, kharris@15and0.com. Make sure you send it to him, all your complaints. Carlos, thanks for doing the show with me once again.
Hey, listen, before we go, at the end of the day, man, the day is over. Our show is over, but at the end of the day is ended. At the end of the day, there you go. By now, whoever is competing in this drinkathon is sloshed, does not remember this episode, has blacked out, and hopefully enjoyed themselves.
You're absolutely right, my brother. Hopefully they have a good time going into Friday night, and hopefully there's a happy day Saturday. Everybody has a happy weekend.
Right. And if they do win Friday night, then you can feel free after the game to play Don't Stop Believing. But do not play that at the stadium. That is not a stadium song. Not down here, it isn't. All right.
We will be back next week with another episode of Wide Right. Thank you for listening.
Peace.